Hello everyone, my name is Chris and I am the food services manager at the living room. I work here with three incredible folks and we prepare lunches every day and a bunch of other things. And we just want to go over a few things that this is the first in a series of videos that we're going to be making available to everyone. And it's just little hints and little techniques to help you out so that things are a little easier when you're cooking, and it'll definitely speed up the process so you'll spend less time cooking. And these videos will cover a lot of different things, from like just some basic techniques we'll be going over today. But then as we get going, we'll get into things that are a little bit more involved, and as you follow the videos, you'll see your confidence grow, you'll see your progress, and it's just all part of preparing healthy, delicious foods. And we're not going to make it complicated. We're going to make it super easy and super fun, and even a chance to get the family involved, get the kids in there, get everyone in the kitchen, and teaching the kids to cook also. So the first thing we're going to do, I've got a variety of veggies here. I've got some parsnips, and parsnips are a winter vegetable and they're fantastic. Butternut squash, just a big butternut squash that looks a little bit intimidating, but it's going to be totally easy to deal with. And we have got a fennel bulb, a couple of yellow onions, and some carrots. And we're just going to go through how we get them ready and how we chop, dice, or slice anything here. First thing that's most important is wash your veggies. Obviously not the onions or the carrots or the parsnips, because we're going to be peeling those and we're going to be removing that outer skin. But something like a butternut squash, I did wash this before, because there's a chance of dragging dirt when we're peeling it, dragging it on the usable part of the butternut squash if you want to eat. And definitely the fennel bulb, I washed it and dried it off. Once I've got the carrot peeled, I'm just going to take the tips off. And one of the things you want to do when you roast veggies is you want the veggies to be relatively the same size, so they roast at the same time. If one's too big and one's too small, the smaller one will be done before everything else, and it stands a potential of burning also. So the carrot goes from the thicker part to the smaller part, and I'm just going to cut it right about here so that I've got some usable, good-sized pieces. On this particular, a couple of things we can do. I'm just going to cut this in an interesting cut. I make a cut at an angle like this. Then I'm going to flip the carrot over, and I'll do another cut this way. And then I just keep turning it, basically a half turn, until I get these shapes. And for a roasted veggie, this is great because we have a lot of different sides now. So a lot of different sides to get color on it. And anytime we can get color on food, that's usually flavor, because we've caramelized sugars. And once you caramelize sugars, things start tasting really good. And on the other end now, I'll do the same thing here. And we have our carrots. I'll just put them on the tray over here. On the parsnip, we'll just start peeling it here. And parsnip is a winter vegetable. It has a sweet flavor to it, kind of the texture of maybe a sweet potato, but a very different flavor. So I've got it peeled, and I'm just going to take the tip off. And I'm careful not to take too much of the tip off so I don't have a lot of waste. On this parsnip, since it's so large, I'm going to cut it into large chunks. And I'm going to try to get them about the same relatively the same size as the carrots. Like that, right? On this, I'll cut it this way. And all I'm trying to do here is get sizes that are alike. And we've got our parsnips. Fennel is a really wonderful vegetable. I've just cut the crown. This is called the crown. And we've just got rid of the green part. So we're left with just the bulb. And this is a fennel bulb. If we cut the fennel bulb in half, so we have two halves, there's a little core right here, and that's hard and not edible. So we need to take that core out. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll just get rid of this back part because it's brown. And then we can quarter it now. So we took it from this, we took the back part off, and then we cut it this way. And now the core is exposed. And we can hold it up at a slight angle and cut the core out. And the core is not edible. It's kind of like the core of a cabbage, where you want to get rid of that hard part. And the fennel, we're just going to keep them in sizes like this. What I'm trying to do here is just have a variety of shapes, but to cut things that are going to roast at relatively the same rate. So I've quartered it. I've basically just cut it in half. And then here's our little core right here. And we'll take the core out and we'll cut it in half. So we have our fennel, carrots, we have our parsnip. Now we'll do a butternut squash. And this is a large butternut squash. So I find it's easy for me to hold it very steady and take my peeler and start at the very top and peel it all the way in one motion, all the way down. And it's kind of hard to get the very back part. To get the back part, or the bottom part, because the bottom part curves under, and it's kind of like a melon or a cantaloupe, where it's kind of hard to get to. I like to flip it over, and I'll grab it with a towel, because remember this part is very slippery. And we're just going to peel the bottom part. We'll get all the peel off of it. Now we've got it peeled. We'll take the top off right here. And once again, we don't want to cut a ton of usable product away. Just want to use as much of it as we can. And you can see what's left on the bottom here. And we're just going to cut this part off. And now we've got a peeled butternut squash. On the bottom part, right here, where it starts to widen, that's where the seeds are in the butternut squash. So if I cut it, if we cut it here, you can see where the seeds have started. And the easiest way to do this, to clean it, is to then cut the butternut squash in half. So we've got it to this point, and then we can scoop the seeds out with a spoon. And it's just a matter of working all the seeds out, and this membrane that attaches the seeds to the actual flesh of the squash. And that's all we really need to do. Now we've got butternut squash that we can cut our dice and roast it. So that's the bottom part. Now the top part, there are no seeds in here. I'm just going to scoop this little bit of stuff out here. But we've got now usable pieces that we can actually roast. And I'm going to go for kind of a nice big chunk on this. And it depends on what you're doing with it. For the purpose of roasting, we're going to make big chunks. If we were making something else that called for a smaller dice, we could absolutely do a smaller dice. I'm just going to go, and once again, we want to get as much as you can. Have things be all relatively the same size. That way we are assured that when we're cooking them, they're going to cook evenly. On the bottom part that we cleaned earlier, I'm going to cut big slices like this. And once I get to this point, now I can cut big chunks. Alrighty, so we have our butternut squash that we've chunked up, we've diced into large chunks. If we take the onion, and once again, we're trying to get as much out of the product without throwing very much away, throwing away as little as possible. I'm just going to cut the tip off, and then I'll turn it around, and I'll cut the other tip off. Then we can lay it down. We can cut it right down the middle. And we'll peel it. Now at this point, since we are roasting the onion, we're going to go with very large chunks. And I'm just going to cut it down here. And what I have here are beautiful big chunks. And that'll be for roasting. So we've got all of our things, and they'll roast at relatively the same rate. I do want to show you, as I'm cutting onion, how you would get a smaller dice of an onion. We've peeled the second half, got all the skin removed, and there are a couple of ways you can do this. I'm going to make a cut here, but I'm not going all the way through. I'm keeping it together. I'm going to make another cut here. So basically I've cut it and fanned it this way, but I've left it attached to the bottom. Once you've got it, you can put it back on the board, and then we can make small slices. Basically looks like this. It's just an onion that's sliced in two directions, but it's held together because we haven't cut all the way through on the back side. And then we can take our knife, and this is a small dice. This is a super small dice. So it depends on what you're, once I've come to this back part, I flip it back on the board. And what you have here is a small dice of onions to make, let's say, pasta sauces or anything that requires a small dice. We have our veggies cut. We've got our fennel, carrots, parsnips, butternut squash, and onions. And we are going to roast these at about 350 to 375 degrees. It should take about 45 to 50 minutes for everything to roast and to be fully cooked. And this is just a little side dish of veggies. It's different, it's colorful, and it's also delicious. Olive oil. I'll put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in this. About 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons pepper, and I'm using dried thyme, but fresh thyme is also great, and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. And we'll just give that a good mix so the herbs get evenly distributed. Okay, with these roasted vegetables, a little balsamic vinegar is really wonderful with it. It brings out some of the sweetness, and the balsamic vinegar also has a bit of sweetness to it. I'm just going to drizzle a bit of balsamic vinegar. It's probably about a tablespoon. It'll give it flavor, and it will give it some color also as it roasts. Give that a good mix. And we go right back on a sheet tray or a baking pan. A baking pan will also roast these guys very nicely. And we'll go in the oven.